And on the line is Mike Sommer at the Mike Sommer on Twitter, website waxpackhero.com, host of the Wax Pack Hero Sports Card Minute. Mike, how's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Everything's pretty good. Little sunshine out here in California, so feeling good. Um, Feeling the springtime in the air. Speaking of springtime in the air, before we get to the card stuff, I was listening to your podcast. You're a long time, lifelong, practically Chicago Cubs fan, thanks to your grandmother. Spring training's around the corner. What's the outlook for the Chicago Cubs here in 2020, you think?
There is a lot of conversation right now here in Illinois about Chris Bryant and his whole arbitration thing and whether he is going to be on even make it to the team by the time spring training hits. So there's still a lot of rumor mill about him getting traded. And so as many Cub fans are right now, we're in that cautious, optimistic state, even though we've had several years of winning teams. We're not used to that. And so even when things look pretty good, we're still pretty hesitant to get excited.
That's true. I guess before 2016, there was a lot of pain involved in being a Chicago Cubs fan. But hopefully things work out well with Chris Bryant, somebody I saw play in college and met at the Topps Transcendent party. So hopefully they maybe get a contract. Or I guess, did he sign a one-year deal? Or what do they have him under now?
I think he's only got like 1 year left.
Okay. So it's
Under
Judgment
the
Day. It's
Yep.
Judgment Day on Chris Bryant here for the Cubs here.
Yep. It's like down to that 1 to 2 year window we've got.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure they'll either trade him or pay him. Speaking of money, I was listening to your podcast, the Wax Pack Hero Sports Card Minute. You're about 7 episodes deep. I think one of you did a whole episode on your collecting goals for 2020, and one of your big
Yeah.
themes is to only buy PC cards with money made from selling other cards. I think you could actually like trademark this saying of kind of a self-sustaining hobby. Tell me about that concept and what that's all about.
Yeah. So for me, when I got back into the hobby in 2015, it had been 20 years or so. And when I had stopped collecting, boxes were $20, $30, whatever it was. And it wasn't that big of a deal. And when I got back in 2015, it didn't take too long to figure out that if I wanted to collect actively, when you're in a world of boxes that are ranging from $50 to $150, for a standard set, I was going to need to do something to offset some of that cost. And so I wasn't comfortable in spending a lot of the income from my day job for this hobby. And so it kind of partnered well, this idea of a self-sustaining hobby partnered well with kind of this entrepreneurial streak that I've had ever since I was a kid. And I said, well, let's see what I can do to try to generate a little income off of this to raise the funds to cover that hobby. And so ever since probably mid 2016, I started to buy cards and sell cards with a little bit of intentionality. And it's led to, for 3 or 4 years now, of me being able to completely cover the cost of my collection with other cards that I'm buying and selling.
And so how do you physically go about doing that? Where are you selling these cards? I assume on multiple platforms. What's working the best for you, and where are you selling these cards specifically?
Sure. And so, yeah, so from a sourcing perspective, it started real small. It started with, buying quarter box cards and dollar box cards out of my LCS and turning around and selling them on eBay for $3 or $4. Eventually, I picked up a small collection for less than $100 and turned it into a couple $100, and gradually that built and built. And here, our LCS mainly focuses on higher end cards, and so when he gets in collections of base or when people open base in the shop and kind of leave it. He doesn't want to mess with all that. And so I've worked out a relationship with him where I'm able to get some pretty good deals on just kind of your standard base and inserts. And that's when I came across Sport Lots. And so I kind of use a 3 platform approach for my cards that I'm selling. A lot of base and inserts on Sport Lots. I'm up to over 130,000 cards or so there.
Wow.
And then cards that are typically worth between $1 and $20, I'll send in to check out my cards. And so that's kind of been my platform for cards that are $1 to $20, as well as whatever I just pick up to flip on site. And then eBay, I will typically sell things that are $20 plus, and then mix in a few other lower dollar cards too. But I've kind of used those 3 platforms to kind of generate that kind of consistent income.
Okay, so you have 130,000 cards on Sports Lots. That is like 20, like a lot of 3,500 count boxes. So where
Yeah.
are these cards? And then how, so, you're selling these cards individually, I assume. How do
Yep.
you then, where are these cards? How do you organize them? And then when you get an order on Sports Lots, what is that process like to pick, pack, and ship that particular card?
Sure. So yeah, so I just tweeted out a little video a couple days ago of my Sport Lots and eBay closet. And so in our basement spare bedroom, we've got kind of a walk-in closet that I took over and put in some steel shelves and some other things like that. And so they are full of 3-row and 5-row boxes where all those 130,000 cards are stored. Um, Organization wise, that's one of the keys if you're going to sell in any kind of volume on Sport Lots is you have to be organized. And so I typically organize by year, by set, and in number order. And then I've got all of the boxes labeled and dividers in there and all that type of stuff. And so for the most part, when I get one of those orders, I know where I need to look. If I'm in the basketball section, the baseball section, the football section, hockey, racing, depending on whatever it is, I know where to start, and then I've got the organization by year to make things go a little bit quicker. And so that's kind of how I've got things organized. And so when I get the orders, I'll print them off, and I'll take that order slip in and start pulling and marking things off. And so it usually, being organized, it makes it go pretty quick. The biggest order I ever got was a couple weeks ago. I got one single order of 587 cards, I believe. It was about 11 printed pages. It took about 2.5 hours, but it was an order that was like $120.
Wow.
And so, I was making $40 or $50. So $120 on commons,
Sure.
right? I mean, it's base and inserts. And so these kind of standard cards, there's not big dollar cards in there, but it kind of turned what everybody else had discarded, things that I bought for a penny a piece or whatever in bulk, turned into, hundreds of dollars a month.
Okay, more Sports Talk questions because this is really interesting. How many orders per day? You have 130,000 cards currently listed. About how many orders are you getting per day?
Probably 5 to 10, I'd say. What we're sitting here on the 15th, I've gotten 120 orders so far this month. It's been a little bit heavier volume than normal. But I'm usually running somewhere between 150 to 200 orders a month.
Wow.
And so that's, somewhere between 5 and 10 a day.
That's not bad at all. Okay, so you're able to do this profitably. How are you accounting for this? You've worked out the deal with the card shop guys. Some of these cards are probably you're buying for like fractions of pennies. How do you account for this on a spreadsheet or something and know how much money you're making?
Yeah, so I've got a spreadsheet that I use to track all of my purchases and all of my sales. And so just kind of continuing to keep records of all of that stuff, both eBay and sport lots, as well as the purchases. That's kind of how I've been able to do it. I don't try to tie, a fraction of a cent of a card,
Sure.
to that specific sale, but in bulk, kind of on a monthly basis, I'm keeping track of all my expenditures as well as the revenue that comes in.
How often do you update it? Is it something you sit down and do every day or every month? Like, how often do you update essentially how much money you've made or that kind of spreadsheet?
For things like sport lots, it's just you only get paid monthly on that site, and so that is just kind of a once a month entry. And then the other stuff I'll do in real time. So if I bring home a collection from Facebook or from the card shop or whatever, I'll make that entry. If I buy something or sell something on eBay, I'll make those entries kind of in real time for those types of things.
Is it, I know on eBay you've got to create an individual listing for all these things and, scan in pictures. On Amazon, a lot of times it's just listing something, not sports card related, it's just with a UPC barcode. How hard is it to list on sports lots? What's that process kind of like?
Yeah, so it's basically it pulls up a big spreadsheet for you, kind of an access database or a spreadsheet that you're going to enter stuff into. And so before you go to list anything, you really have to have it organized by set and in number order, because it's just pulling up this big database table essentially and says, number one, you enter your quantity and what price you want to price it at. Number two, how many do you have and what do you want to price it at, on down the list. And so you kind of have to do all of your organization before you even go in to list it. But then once you do, it's just like punching numbers into a spreadsheet.
So they're using like stock photographs for some of these base cards that people aren't, you're not going to send them a creased copy of a 1995 Topps card. Is it stock photography or is it no photograph? How do the pictures work on there?
Yeah, so you can upload your own photograph. There's no stock photographs. So kind of your standard commons and things like that, people don't really often upload pictures of, definitely not of every card. You do kind of use the standard condition guide, from good, very good, excellent, near mint, so you're supposed to kind of categorize your cards as, what condition they are so that people aren't getting caught off guard by that. So some vintage and then higher end cards, people that sell higher end cards on there do upload photos pretty regularly. And that's actually one of the little shortcuts or cheats to get your card listed towards the top of the inventory list, is if you have a photo, that's one of the things that'll bump your card to the top.
Interesting.
So that's one strategy.
Yeah.
One strategy people have done to kind of hack it a little bit.
I think I could talk about sports lots all day because I've obviously heard of the website and I'm aware that, people have done well on it. It's been around for since before I think Sports Card Radio existed. So the site's been around a long time. And
yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's been around a long time. I'm glad I discovered it. It fits really well with my MO of being a set builder and liking kind of low end base and inserts. It just fit really well for me trying to fill out sets and also provide an outlet for the things that I can buy super cheap to make some money on. And so, a lot of people give it grief because I affectionately call it GeoCities because it looks like it was,
Right.
Designed in 1995 on GeoCities. But it's been great for me. I really like it.
So what percentage you're selling on eBay? Check out my cards, sports lots. What do you have a sense of what percentage is sports lots? What percentage is ComC? What percentage is eBay? Like, what's the best for you? What do you use the least?
I'd say I'm probably sport lots it's like a consistent $400 to $600 a month. It's each and every month is somewhere in that range for me. eBay's just kind of hit or miss on what I've got, and then on ComC, I'm just in inventory acquisition mode. It's kind of part of my 10 or 15-year plan to just continue to build inventory. And so I'm consistently making sales, and those sales are covering cards that I'm buying to flip on the site, as well as all of my submissions. I think I deposited $80 or $100 a couple of years ago when I made my first submission to ComC, and on that side, I'm up to 30 something thousand cards, and I've
Wow.
never had to deposit another dime. And so I'm just using all of that money to plow back into acquiring more inventory. And so I don't really have a real firm grasp on what my true profit is from ComC, but it's allowing me to just continue to add cards for free, essentially.
So you're sending cards into ComC. You've got 130,000 cards at your house. You touched on it a little bit, buying collections on Craigslist, OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace. What are some other tips? How often are you looking for deals? And then what percentage of time, how often are you striking a deal? For how often are you looking for a deal to the percentage of how often do you strike a deal? What's that kind of ratio?
Yeah, that's a good question. I probably end up picking up one collection a month. How much I look really depends on what I get. Like I just picked up a collection this week that was probably 4 or 5 thousand cards, and it'll take me a couple weeks to get through and sort it. And so I probably won't do much looking in the next couple weeks because I know I've got this collection sitting here that I need to get through and sort and list and get ready to send in, some of that to ComC. I've had some collections that are, 100,000 cards, and it's a month before I look again because I'm just looking through it. And then other times, um, when I'm kind of caught up with everything, I'm looking multiple times a day on the classified ads, where I work, and the talking to the card shop owner and trying to work something out. So it really is just hit or miss depending on what I've been able to buy recently.
And so when you're kind of, scouring these ads and then you go meet up these people, what are these people like? I assume they're not like hardcore card collectors. Like how are they getting the cards? Do you have a sense of that? Or who are these people that you kind of deal with?
Um, I'd say it's kind of all over the board. Um, I'd say probably half of the stuff that I get through my LCS, and it's people that bring in their whole collection, and he doesn't want to mess with all the low end stuff, and so he takes a few of the high end cards and then calls me up and passes the rest on to me, essentially, at a good price. Some of the stuff that I've talked to individually are people who collected um, a while ago and just got out of it and just doesn't interest them anymore. They collected with their kid as their kid was growing up. Their kid doesn't want to do it anymore, and they want to clear out space. Um, it's really those types of situations that I've run into most. People who are passionate about it for a while and just have moved on to other things. I haven't really found any from people who are still actively collecting.
Would you buy literally anything if the price was right? Like if I had just stacks of 91 Fleer or something and it was, essentially just giving it away, would you take it? Or do you over pass over a lot of deals or not want to buy certain things because you've already got 130,000 cards? What's the thought process kind of there?
I'll buy about anything if the price is right, even like junk wax. And so one of the other things that I didn't touch on is I do set up at a local show once a month, and my success at these local shows is quarter boxes. And so I've got quarter boxes full of stars, Cal Ripken, Bo Jackson,
Right.
Dwight Gooden, Roger Clemens, all these guys. And there's people that will come and sit for hours going through my quarter boxes. And so even that junk wax stuff, I will go through it and pull out the stars and stick them in my quarter box. And there are people, and I will also use Facebook to sell. And so, I'll list 100,000 cards, just a bunch of boxes full of
Right.
cards, and let people know, hey, there's not going to be a lot of expensive stuff in here, but if you want to go through it all, there's still some, and some stars and things, and I'll have no problem moving, some of those big bulk lots of cards for $50 or $100 or whatever. And so if I'm getting a big collection and the price is right, and I can pull off several thousand cards to stick in my quarter box and comp C and sport lots, and I can, move on the rest, I'll go ahead and do that.
Do you have any ambition to scale it up even further than it is?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I love about comp C is I do kind of in my mind, I hope to retire early at around age 55 or so. And I would love for cards to kind of supplement my pension at that point and allow me to retire early. And so, I think I want to continue to build that up, and Comp C is really where that scaling I think can happen. I can't scale up the sport lot stuff or the eBay stuff that much more um, than what I'm doing right now, just with my normal job and with family obligations and all of that type of thing. But when you can just send a bunch of stuff into to ComC and buy and sell, flip things directly on the site itself, I really see that inventory scaling from the 30 something thousand cards that I've got on ComC um, to six figures over the next few years. Not six figures of dollars, but hundreds of thousands of cards.
Sure. Do you have? I'm always interested in all this dorky stuff. Do you have keep a spreadsheet of cards you send in, and then you flip? Like, do you keep track of that? How much money you're making there?
I don't, and the reason I don't is because everything that I've bought, like everything in my house, everything on eBay, everything I've sent into ComC is 100% already paid for from profits.
Sure.
And so my net in all of this stuff is nothing. And so as long as I can sell it, it's pure profit at this point. And so I haven't tracked my submissions too closely as far as what I paid, because a lot of the stuff that I'm sending in, even the it's $3 or $4 or $5, that I'm selling it for, my cost is nickels, and so I'm pretty safe in having all of that covered. I don't have much risk of losing anything on those submissions.
Right. So you've got this really interesting self-sustaining hobby going on. So what are you buying? It sounds like you've got some money coming in here and some profit. What do you then turn around and buy for your own collection and your own enjoyment?
Yeah, a lot of what I'm getting is just being added. I'll keep back some of the things from these collections that I'm buying of guys I like, of players I like, and so I'll keep. I've got a binder where I've got Trouts and Chris Bryant's and all these, the big stars of today. One of the focuses that I've had over the last couple of years is the Topps Living set, and so that's one of the things that I'm adding each week. And last year, and then continuing on to this year, I've also started to focus more on building vintage sets. And so last year, I finished out all the sets from the 70s, and I'm starting to move into the sets from the 1960s this year. And so those are kind of the primary focuses at this point.
You mentioned, retiring at an early age. Somebody who probably could retire at an early age, but kind of keeps his energy level at unprecedented levels is Gary Vaynerchuk, better known as Gary Vee. Uh, a lot of people in the sports card hobby on social media apps have, varying opinions on the guy. Some are quite negative, some are positive. In December, you wrote an article on your website, waxpackhero.com. Is Gary Vaynerchuk good for the sports card community? What do you
Yeah.
what was that article all about? Is Gary Vee good for the hobby? What are your thoughts on Gary Vee?
Yeah. So he ever since he kind of came back to some hobby prominence, last year, yeah, he seems to be a hot button person. People either love him or hate him, it seems like. And um, as I'd been listening to him for a while before this even came back, and listening to his podcast and things. And having that entrepreneurial streak, a lot of what he talked about resonated with me. And so, it seemed to me that some of the people who feel the strongest negative, have the strongest negative feelings for him, it seems like they haven't fully listened to the message that he's trying to say. And so I kind of took it upon myself to kind of share, here are some things when I listen to Gary and the message that he is sharing, or trying to help other people understand. Here are some things that stand out to me that I think are beneficial for people, whether it's hobby specific or in life in general. And here's the positive that I found from it. And so, I think overall he is a net positive for the hobby and for collectors in general. And the message that he speaks about attention leading to relevance, and bringing more eyes to whether it's the hobby or whatever your business is, will help it succeed. To have an approach of serving first, and then success will follow. Following your passion, being accountable. If you try something and it works, good for you. If you try something and it bombs, don't blame other people. Figure out what you need to do, to adapt it. And then finally, taking action. Not just sitting around and talking about it or wishing things were better, but getting after it and doing something about it. I think those things are kind of universal truths, and if you think about it, are going to be beneficial for anybody.
Yeah, I personally listen to some of his stuff. Every podcast that he does, he mentions sport. I swear he mentions sports cards, like in
Yeah.
some context. So, I think he's good. What did you think? He had kind of had a Tops made like a online exclusive set for him. Did you
Yep.
pick that up? What did you think of that?
I did pick that up. I bought one at the National, and then I ordered a couple more. The one at the National was just the standard cards. The one that they had just after the National included some autographs and things like that in there. And I picked up some of each. I think it's an interesting concept, to collaborate on. They all the cards in the set kind of had a story behind them on why he chose them to be in the set, and I thought it was a neat thing to try. I'm all for innovation and trying new things, and why not try something new like that, and so I picked up a set for myself and then a few to flip, and so had some success doing that too.
How often are you working on your website? How many pieces of content are you putting right now?
Right now, I'm trying to do 2 articles a week and 2 podcasts a week, and then intermixed in there are some other updates to some of the running spaces. So I've got a living set, kind of a page focused on the living set, where I'll update that checklist every
Yeah.
week as new cards come out and get released. And so there's micro pieces that are added several times a week, but 2 major articles and 2 podcasts is what I've been shooting for right now. And then trying to get on Twitter and the other social media platforms as well. So there's micro content that I'm putting out on there too that don't make it onto the website, that I'm hoping are helping drive traffic back to the site, and helping contribute to the growth that it's seeing.
What's working? What pages are get the most traffic?
Um, I really think it just depends. I found success posting about things that are more telling a story, right? So tying my collecting story or why I'm going after a particular set, or the things like my goals post, things that are more personal in nature versus just um, versus just statistical or factual information. That seems to drive and have the most popularity in the moment, things that get shared the most and that type of thing.
Right.
But the static pages of those set reviews and things like that generate consistent search traffic. Nobody's searching for my goals, but
Sure.
people are still searching for a review of 2019 Bowman
Sure.
or 1978 Topps baseball, so I've tried to kind of have that mix of things that generate more real-time interest and help people develop that understanding of who I am and what I'm about, while also adding content that is going to be more search relevant in the future.
What do you like doing better? What type of content do you like producing better? That kind of, checklist style content, or the goals and opinion type pieces?
I think the goals and opinion type pieces are more fun. I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to start the podcast too, is because it's another platform for me to be able to kind of tell my story, or make it more than just words on a page, but add some personality to it as well. And so I think I have more fun doing the goals, or the my collecting story, or my journey, or whatever type of posts.
How, in today's environment, do you think sports card blogs are going to make money?
Yeah, I think I am so new at this, right? So I'm 2 years into blogging. The first year I was just figuring it out. Last year is when I really started getting serious about strategy. And I had reached out to you, I think, even on some affiliate type stuff, and to get some input there. I, you know, I am covering the cost of my hosting with, yeah, and I'm starting to pick up some steam with eBay affiliate stuff and AdSense, but I'm in the 30, 40, $50 a month type range
No,
with
that's not
that type of
bad.
stuff,
Yeah.
and so I'm covering my costs. I'm generating a little bit extra, but I'm nowhere near it being a viable, big picture, long-term type thing. But at this point, I think the affiliate revenue is challenging, but it's still there. Um, but I'm such a novice at the whole thing. I don't know that I can really speak with much authority on kind of where it's going to go, long term.
What about for podcasts? You're only seven or episodes in. Do you think there comes a time where people sponsor podcasts?
Yeah, I think that is maybe one of the growing opportunities, as podcasting, I think, is continuing to grow. And there are a lot of sports card podcasts that do get sponsorship from breakers, from supply manufacturers, people making cases, or some of the other supplies. I know there's people that are um, sponsoring things there. I think there is opportunity to gain sponsorship for podcasts, and that's something that definitely, at some point when I've grown an audience to a point where a potential sponsor thinks that there would be value in my audience hearing about their product, that's something that I would definitely be open to considering, especially if it's a product that I believe in.
Does the sports card content podcasting, does it scale bigger than it is now?
I think it will. I think, because I still think there's niches to fill. There are shows that are doing more review type stuff, what's coming out, and here's what's out, and here's who's in it, and here's what's hot from that. There's people doing more interview based shows, and they're almost, all interviews with different people. I'm trying to do a shorter 12 to 15 minute type podcast that is more on the theme of how to build a self-sustaining hobby, right? So mixing both the hobby and the business side together, and that's been my focus, or that's going to be my focus as I continue to get more episodes out there. And so I still think there are niches within the niche that can be developed, and I think there's niches can still be lucrative. And so I still
Right.
think there are passionate people in the hobby that have dollars to spend. And if you're able to concentrate those dollars and you're producing good content and able to align an audience with a product, I think there's still opportunity for even small podcasts or small blogs to partner with people in the industry.
I mean, I listened to your podcast and I wanted to go buy 100,000 cards and put them on sports slots. So what's the value? What's the value to that to sports slots? And
Right.
I don't think people who have businesses and they're not in the content creation business, they don't see the value in that. I literally listened to your 15-minute podcast on sports slots and I was like, why haven't I been doing this all along? Like that just seems so easy.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot. I mean you're spending hours, sorting, listing, and pulling. So it's not as easy as other sites. ComC is great for
Sure.
that ease of friction, but um, from I call it super low risk. I'm buying these cards for fractions of a penny a piece, and I'm selling them for 18 cents a piece. That's pretty good return on your money.
Yeah, it literally wanted to make me just fill up the spare bedroom in my house with like boxes of cards. I was like, man. And if you just had it organized, and like you say, you get the 500 card order, it's going to take you a little bit. But I kind of saw the whole. When you were talking, I was like, I just kind of saw it, and I was like, damn. I was like, that's a really interesting thing. So yeah, I hope that brands and websites and people see the value in some of this content. Maybe it never happens, but it certainly would be good if it does. Where can people find you, Mike? Where can they find you, follow you, and get some of this content you're pumping out?
Sure. Waxpackhero.com is the primary source for the content. That's all the blog posts. You can also follow me on Twitter at the Mike Sommer. That's probably the place where I'm most active on social media. And then the search Wax Pack Hero Sports Card Minute in Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Google Play, and that's where you'll find the new podcast.
Sweet. Yeah, I definitely encourage people to check it out. I listened to all the episodes. You had a good interview with a Cubs collector. Lots of good information on shipping plain white envelope, which we didn't get to touch on. The Topps Living set, which you're a collector of. So just lots of good information. Like you said, it's quick. It doesn't take. It's not an hour. We're going an hour and 20 minutes. So it's quick, easily digestible, and can definitely get a lot out of it. So I definitely appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, thanks. I really enjoyed the conversation.
For sure. Thank you, buddy. We'll have you back on sometime.
Sounds good.
Alrighty.